What makes me fearless is that my fear is not going to stop me.
When you're really confident, it's almost like you don't think.
Welcome to Think About It with me, Victoria Azarenka. On today's episode, we have Dr. Rupy Aujla. I had a pleasure of speaking with Dr. Rupy about power of food and lifestyle changes medicine. Rupy is a London-based doctor who transformed his diet when he was diagnosed with an irregular heartbeat, which led him to create the Doctor's Kitchen. Our conversation is full of information, and I love the personal stories he shared. I think you're going to really enjoy this one.
Well, Rupy, thank you so much for being on my show. It's such a pleasure to talk to you. I'm really excited. I've worked really hard on preparing my notes and watching some of your videos, your TED Talks, so I hope I'm informed quite a bit.
Honestly, it's a pleasure, and I can't wait to chat to you. I've been a fan for a little while now, so it's an absolute privilege. And to know that you've watched my TED Talk as well is giving me goosebumps.
One of the main topics I want to kind of learn as well is I have a son who is 4 years old, and I try to learn what are the best ways to educate him. And one of the ways I believe the most efficient is being a role model, to him and show rather than just say. So I want to learn about things, nutrition, I feel like, and food, because that's what I believe one of your main points that you're working on is integrating nutrition into medicine more, and it's really fascinating to me.
So I'm privileged to work in the NHS in London. I have patients from all different types of backgrounds, whether it be Chinese, Korean, Indian, African. I can't be giving them a kale salad or suggesting the same sort of recipe to everyone. You've got to be respectful of their backgrounds. And particularly when it comes to kids, and I know you've got a baby boy, Leo, who's beautiful. I've seen him, and he's got his own Instagram account as well, which is awesome. With kids, I just think we need to introduce the playful aspect of food, the knowledge of where food comes from, the importance of soil, because this generation of kids are going to be the new activists that promote a healthy planet as well as healthy bodies on a healthy planet. And so trying to get that into schools as well as medical schools is something that I'm trying to work on via the nonprofits as well.
And I want to get back to this, to all this about kids and stuff, but I want to know a bit more of your background. Basically, you have changed really your lifestyle from an unfortunate thing that happened to you, which became in a way a blessing, right?
So my story really starts as being a patient, right? So I qualified as a doctor over a decade ago, and 3 months into the job, you can imagine stressful lifestyle, night shifts, constantly, working late as well. My diet just went out the window. The way I was eating went out the window. So
I can't imagine this. I'm scared of blood, so I can't even imagine what you're doing. So
it's funny because, as a junior, you really don't know what it's like. You're just thrown into the deep end, and suddenly you have this rotor. Suddenly you have a bleep that just doesn't stop making noise, and you're constantly running around the wards. And I was really lucky because I worked in a big hospital and I got loads of experience, but man, I was stressed. I was super stressed and I wasn't eating right. I was just eating cereal and canteen sandwiches, and the food in hospitals as it is, in America and most healthcare systems is terrible. And 3 months into the job, I was working on a late shift. I was answering a bleep, and my heart was just beating super fast to the point where I thought at one point I was going to pass out. And I was pretty embarrassed, but I went to my boss and I spoke to her and I was like, look, would you mind feeling my pulse? I feel like I'm going pretty fast right now. And within half an hour, my bleep was taken off, clothes taken off, put into a hospital gown, parked in a hospital bed connected to a cardiac monitor. right next to a patient I'd literally been seeing earlier that day. And this poor lady was really confused about, like, you know, why her doctor was a patient next to her now. But that was the first atrial fibrillation episode I had. And atrial fibrillation, just for your viewers and listeners, is a condition where your heart beats irregularly and very fast, as is in my case. So I was going at 200 beats per minute. I would have these episodes 2 to 3 times a week for the next year. And it was, you know, I experienced what it was like to be a patient. It was frustrating. It was scary. It wasn't a good time, and I wanted to continue with my medical career. So I went through all the investigations, as you can imagine. Long story short, I was offered something called an ablation, and that's where you actually burn an area around a part of the heart to stop this misfiring of cells. And everybody told me that's definitely the way forward. I should 100% go for that. I was a new doctor, so, you know, I had some really good doctors telling me this, and I sought a lot of advice. But the one person who said, I really need to look at my diet and my lifestyle, was my mum, obviously. And, you know, she's not a doctor. She's not medically trained at all. She just grew up in an Indian household and had that sort of typical Indian upbringing where you got to look at the environment of your body as well as, you know, looking at other things like medications. And so, honestly, to appease her, I decided, okay, well, I'm going to look at my diet and what I was eating and how I was living. And within a year and a half, my AF episodes went from 2 to 3 times a week to 0. Yeah, and that really just opened my eyes up into the power of food. And I started just doing a lot more research into the clinical evidence, the academic studies, and having more open, honest conversations with my patients about how food could potentially help with them as well. So that was the start of the journey, and it's been an incredible one since then.
You know, I will share one personal story with you. I grew up, we were pretty poor. So I know what it's like to be hungry. I know what it's like to finish your meal because you don't leave anything on the plate and you eat fast. So I know this, and, you know, I grew up in Belarus. We have, you know, quite cold winters where ability to get fresh vegetables and fresh fruits in the winter is very challenging, and it's very expensive. So what I remember is my grandma and my mom growing, you know, onions and green onions in little glass jars, and you eat those. I remember going to my grandma's, you know, dacha, which is called like a little country house, which is not even a house, more like a tent, and growing your own vegetables and understanding the soil, how to I know how to milk a goat. I haven't done it since I was a kid, but I've learned all those things, and those are most nutritious things you can get. It's fresh, it's off of your garden and stuff. But what my parents has done is a lot of canning of the foods, you know, so we could get those vegetables and fruits and like jam from your own, like apples or whatever. So we would have over maybe like 300 liters of food for winter to stock up, so we could, you know, we could get nutritional food. And though that method is not expensive because you are able to buy vegetables in season, so you can buy it in bulk. You prepare, it's a lot of work, obviously, but you're able to kind of sustain yourself on pretty good level. And I'm very proud that my parents, you know, kind of found that way, and we still do this. Like to this day, my mom still does, you know, tomatoes and peppers and cucumbers and cabbage, and sauerkraut now is the biggest thing ever. And I mean, I grew up on that because that's what grandma always does. So it's kind of like an interesting way, and I wanted to share that kind of story because I think a lot of people feel like, well, it's easy for you to do that, you know, because, you know, you have money now, you have this, you have access, but for us it's hard. And I say, yes, it's definitely hard, but there's a way where you can find maybe to help a little bit more. Maybe it's not going to be completely good, but there's, the balance of it. If it's even 30%, 40%, that makes it so much better than what it, than zero.
And honestly, Vika, that story melts my heart. The fact that your family were all involved in that sort of cooking process.
My dad would go in a forest and pick up mushrooms, and then we dry mushrooms, and then you can recook them, and then you can make powder. So many ways where you can. I know how to live on the budget. So those valuable lessons, but the nutrition part of that, like as I said, like the sauerkraut, like
it's huge.
Nobody includes that. In US now the jar is like $25, and I was like, you can make it for $1. Like, are you kidding me? You sell this for $25? It's a ripoff. This is crime. Like, to do that. This is crime.
And the biggest thing there, I mean, is education, because people don't see how they can even make that, right? Like the fact that you can make things like kimchis and sauerkrauts and kefir is super cheap, but it's the time you need and it's the education you need. So, nowadays we've lost that, and it goes back to what we were saying about kids, right? We've lost that connection with food in schools. We're not taught how to cook. We're not taught about the value of cooking. And, it's so trendy to have sauerkrauts and ferments now, but this is kind of what sustained us throughout civilization, because without that knowledge being passed down, we wouldn't have survived through the winters. We wouldn't have survived without fresh vegetables and stuff. It sounds like what you cook in your house sounds amazing as well. Like, what does the typical meal look like in the Vika household?
My family is all about food, and now we have a garden that is like all kinds of vegetables and all kinds of fruit, and so I really love that aspect. And when I took my son back home also, he loved like watering all the fruits and berries, and you pick up you go in the summer, and like my mom grows these berries and she's so proud of it. Like she like weighs her tomatoes, and then she's like, look, this one is like 400 grams, one tomato. I'm like, okay, mom, that's good. But she's so proud of it, and it's amazing. And because I've been just talking to one of my coaches today about this, how small the education is in school, how bad the food is in school, and it hurts. It hurts me. Like, how am I gonna send my son and he's gonna have a choice between pizza and a hot dog? Like, that's not gonna be the choice. He's gonna come with a lunchbox, and I'm gonna be one of those moms that you're gonna make you bring your lunchbox with you to school. But
my mom was one of those moms as well, to be honest. So.
Well, you know what? I'll win this battle. We'll talk about the other ones, but this one I'll win. But the idea of kids not knowing, and in the States, because I live in the States partly now, and my son is half American, so I'm a bit worried, because I've heard kids, when you ask them where the milk comes from, and they say from carton, and I was like, what?
Yeah. Well, this is the world we live in, right? I think in exactly what you're doing right now is having aspirational figures that are killing it on the tennis court or killing it in different sort of, competitive arenas, who are talking about, I know how to ferment. I know how to create my own sauerkraut. I did, amazing stuff for my family. And this is the kind of stuff that we eat now, and actually making vegetables cool. So people think, if I want to get to a point where I feel better in my body, and not just aesthetically, but I feel better in my mind, and I'm able to perform at this kind of elite level, I've got to start learning about, how to fuel myself from a health perspective, rather than just from, an aesthetic point of view. So I think definitely having this in schools is brilliant. And who knows, one day there'll be a commercial where people talk about, broccoli and corn and like all these amazing accessible ingredients that we should know how to cook. So what's like a comfort meal for you? I'm really interested in like how you're eating when you were a kid, and like what's like a bowl of comfort food?
I'm not gonna sit here and be like all that I don't like junk food. I do,
Yeah.
and I love Nutella. I love
Who
Nutella.
doesn't love Nutella? Come on.
Yeah, and so that's gonna be like bread and Nutella is one thing. For me, it's but it's I feel like it's just about balance, because you need to have guilty pleasures. You need to feel good. You need to enjoy food, and you know what, for myself personally, I've tried many diets. I talked about many diets. I even was on raw diet. I probably the only person in the world who went on a vegan diet and gained weight. Because
No way.
yes, I think I'm the only one, because I was so hungry all the time. It just didn't work for me. But I was like, okay. So I started eating more nuts, because like nuts is healthy for you, but not in quantities that. And I gained weight, and I was like, no, like how is this possible? I was so frustrated, because I'm the one person who wanted to be on the diet, for sport, and I was exercising a lot, and that was stressing me out, because I kept cutting myself off of the things that I like. So and then it's just like, okay, and then it's like, okay, I'll just have something, and then it's harder to stop. And I wasn't even, I eat more now than I used to eat before, and not that I was like, out of overweight or something, but I didn't really feel good. I didn't feel like the food was making me better to perform. And look is also important to me, but that was like a secondary, more of a secondary, how you feel and the energy that you can. And for athletes, that percentage, a little percentage of advantage is so important.
Yeah.
So I've learned the most simple way. I've tried all the nutritions. I've read so many books about food and stuff. And then someone told me, like, think about your body as a fire. You have to always put a little bit to make the fire keep going. Just be mindful you can't put, bad things to start the fire. Just put good things, and then balance. Just enjoy a little bit of what I want, what I see. It started to like change for me. And I love to cook. I like to cook fish. I'll probably have to, like, when I'm in London, I'm gonna come, because I need to try your food, because it sounds amazing.
Definitely.
But maybe we'll do a trade-off, and I can cook one meal as well, because
this
is my best one. This is my best one. I cook the Chilean sea bass. I make it like a bit sweet, a bit sour, and everybody who has tried it loved it so far. So I will need some more of a professional judgment.
Well, it sounds pretty good. I do like Chilean sea bass, and I do like the sweet salty combinations. That's nice. You talked about like trying all these different diets, right? What was the motivation for trying all these different diets? What were you trying to achieve back then?
When I was pregnant with my baby, I actually lost weight while I was pregnant. Not like in general. And it was really interesting, but I was just trying to listen more to what I want. And I feel like once you kind of can attune a little bit more, that's where you kind of feel what your body needs. Like, and it's not only in terms of food. Like, if you need a little bit more sleep, or you need a little bit of time, like, we just have so many distractions all around that it's hard to kind of like focus on you and what you need. And I feel like that's really important, because those little like changes helps you to go into a lifestyle rather than a diet. So I forgot the word diet for me. I said, don't come to me with that word. I'm gonna eat what I want to eat. I know food enough to be aware of what I need.
It's interesting. I love asking this question of people, specifically you, because it's amazing how much misinformation there is out there, right? And the fact that you've gone from diet to diet to diet, and you've come out a lot more sort of knowledgeable about it, is great. It shows how in tune you are with everything.
Yeah, it's like there's always these trends, like, for something. And the most
crazy one recently, and it's been in tennis, and it's been like in sports. It's like, oh, this person went gluten-free. Oh, if I go gluten-free, I'll be the next Djokovic. And I'm like, wait, do you need to go gluten-free? Like, are you allergic to gluten? Or like, no. Well, I was like, then what are you talking about?
Then why? Yeah, exactly.
Why? Like, athletes, when we put something out there in terms of health and sport, it's being an example, and a lot of people look, oh, LeBron James also went gluten-free, or he doesn't eat meat, or Kyrie Irving like didn't eat meat, and you're like, oh, I'm not gonna eat meat, I'm gonna be like Kyrie Irving. Like, no,
I know, exactly.
You're not gonna be like Kyrie Irving. So it's just like those trends are so frustrating in a way that, because you see so many people get influenced.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because people don't recognize just how unique we are. And just because you go gluten-free, because, a tennis player has an intolerance and they feel better, and does not necessarily mean that it's going to happen. The same thing's going to happen for you. And even like looking at myself for an example, just because I improved my diet and lifestyle and I was able to overcome my own medical condition, doesn't mean that my patients with a similar thing are going to have the same outcome, because they have different inputs and stuff. So first of all, everyone recognizing that we are not from the same conveyor belt, and we are unique in our needs, depending on whether you're a pro tennis player or not, or whether, you're a busy mom with 3 kids or whatever. You have to recognize your uniqueness.
I feel a responsibility. A lot of kids are watching what I do. My son is going to watch what I do. So I'm trying to be the most mindful as I can. What was interesting for me when I was pregnant, and all the time you hear those conversations, oh, you eat for 2. And no, not really. You don't eat for 2 at all. And matter of fact, you only, for women, like in 3rd trimester, you only need 500 extra calories, which is not that much. And that's like the most you can do. But the idea of it is like, no, like you just need to eat, make sure you eat. My grandma was like, Vika, you need to eat, it's right. I said, Grandma, how about I'm okay? I wanted to also like kind of bring that point of, for women, is understanding how important your nutrition, what you put in your body when you're in such developing, precious state. And that's why I want to learn for myself. I want to bring that kind of awareness to people, for them to hear it maybe once again, but maybe from a different perspective.
Well, no, I think what you said there about that common myth of eating for 2 is really important, because a lot of women still believe that, and a lot of the older generations of women, mothers, grandmothers, still purport that as well. So that's really important to establish right from the start. It's around like 400, 500 calories, and then that changes throughout the next 2 trimesters. Post birth, if you're breastfeeding, your nutritional requirements actually do go up as well. So that's when people think, oh, I don't need to eat as much anymore. Actually, no, you if you're breastfeeding, you do need to keep up your energy intake. And rather than like bringing everything down to sort of energy requirements, when I talk to women and anyone of that matter with food, I kind of give them ideas of like what they should be eating. What does a plate look like? What kind of ingredients should you be using to make the healthiest plate possible?
Yeah, and you talk a lot about about different spices.
Yeah,
and so tell me a little bit more about the importance of spices. Your background is Indian, right?
Yeah. Both
so
Indian.
I can't handle all the Indian spices because it's a bit too much for me.
Yes.
But the beauty of it, and when it's really cooked well and it's done well, it's amazing. In London, I eat Indian food because it's incredible. A friend of mine who is Indian, that food is just absolutely incredible.
Indian food is sort of what I was brought up on, but my mum actually was really experimental as a cook. So she would cook Italian food, American food, British food, and we'd have like a real mixture of different plates. And I learned to play around with spices through her. I try and encourage people to get experimental, because that's just one of the best ways in which you can enjoy food, both the beauty and the functional benefits. And just makes everything so much more exciting. Vika, I'm dying to find out like what your Indian friend cooked you.
I have no idea about the names. It did contain chickpeas, spinach, potatoes, carrots. It was all mixed together. It was incredible. And the naan bread, oh my God, that's something else.
That sounds like saag aloo matar. So saag is spinach, aloo is potato, and matar is peas. And I can imagine the spice mix that they use. It's not too hot. It's quite mild. It's a good like level of spice. Yeah.
It was incredible. I mean, I love chicken masala, and I mean, I'll try. I'm pretty good with trying stuff. It's just not too hot, not that hot, not too hot yet.
Yeah.
I know you're coming out with a new book. This is your third book.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
First off, from your first two books, what are your top 3 favorite recipes?
Okay.
And one recipe that you would choose for me based on our conversation and what you kind of learned a bit about me.
Okay, cool. So I have, it's from my first couple of books, I would choose the Masaman butternut curry. It's a really easy recipe. It's got the Masaman curry paste I teach you how to make as well. And from the second one, there's the Greek giant beans, which is like giant beans, a bit of honey, oregano, fresh tomato paste. It's delicious. And the new book is called 3-2-1. So it's 3 portions of fruit and vegetables, 2 servings per recipe, and only using 1 pan.
That's perfect, because I just bought off of an Instagram. They sold me on those commercial things.
Yeah.
The pan that can do it all, and I just got it. So once I go home after this tournament, I'm gonna cook this recipe. So give me one of the recipes that you would cook for me. So in one pan.
In one pan, I've got one of the most amazing curry recipes. It's not hot, but it's absolutely delicious. It's an almond chicken curry. Do you eat chicken?
Ooh,
yeah. Okay, you do. Yeah. Almond chicken curry. It's got a couple of spices that you might need to get from an Indian specialty store, but you can buy it online. It's got garam masala, cinnamon, a little bit of nutmeg, some cumin spices, and it's got ground almonds. So the ground almonds that you toast in a little bit of oil, but at the start, they thicken the curry. And honestly, it's like this unctuousness. It's got like sour notes in it. It's one recipe I wish I could cook for everyone, because it's just mind blowing, and it's not too hot either. So I think you're gonna like that one. Yeah.
Okay, I'm definitely gonna make that, and then I'm gonna post it. I'm gonna post it, and I'm gonna send it to you.
Nice.
For my reaction. And I'm gonna do it with my mom, because my mom loves cooking. She told me whenever I get married, her gifts for me will be a cookbook.
Amazing.
Like all the recipes that she gathered from like forever, that's gonna be her gift to me. I said, Mom, that's so amazing. You think that once I get married, all I'm gonna be doing is cooking or what? But that's gonna be really interesting. I love that. I'm gonna try some new recipes, and since I don't really know many Indian restaurants where I live now, I'm gonna cook at home.
Good. Well, I'm gonna send you that recipe early, so you get to try it out before anyone else.
Perfect. Rupy, I have one last segment of my show. I've learned a lot about you already, but I asked these few questions that they're very simple, they're fun, but they help me to get to know you even better. So do you mind to do this last segment?
Let's do it. Yeah.
Okay. So what is your favorite word?
My favorite word is a word called mellifluous. So mellifluous comes from the Greek for mel being honey and fluis being flow. So it literally means like sweet flowing. And it kind of just like comes off your tongue. And I don't know, I read it in a book when I was a kid. And I remember asking my mum about it, and we looked it up, and mellifluous is just always stuck in my head. So yeah, sweet flowing. It's just like somebody has a mellifluous way of talking, and yeah, that's the context of it.
When you said that, I thought about the dessert, the French dessert. yeah, that's what I thought. I was like, okay.
Yeah, there you go. Sweet.
Perfect. Okay, what is your least favorite word?
My least favorite word is there's a lot of bad words I won't say, but that's my least favorite word. My least favorite word is grunge, like grunge music. And like I like grunge music. I mean I used to listen to Nirvana and all these other bands and stuff, but grunge just has that like kind of ugliness to it, attached to it. I don't know really where it comes from, but yeah, grunge is my least favorite word.
Okay. What is one profession besides your own you would like to do?
I would like to do something really creative in creating advertising commercials. I think I would just love it, like doing stories and filming and all that aspect and screenshot. I would love to do something like that.
What is one profession you would never do?
So I would never be a nursery teacher. So I work in pediatrics, right, in the hospital, and I I love seeing kids, and one-on-one is great, but honestly, when you're in the waiting room, it's just pure noise, and just to deal with like 20-30 kids running around and being responsible for them, I couldn't do it. I'd be too stressed.
That's a tough one. They're heroes. Like every time I see, I love my son, but sometimes the patience is like it's really testing you. It's
have
really
to have
testing.
so much patience with kids.
Yeah,
it's like
It's, and when it's like your own, they know how to push your buttons because they're like you, so they know exactly what. So, okay.
Definitely.
What another question is, what quality or like personality trait that kind of you admire about people?
So I have a couple. It's creativity, bravery, and entrepreneurship. Those are three things that I think are just amazing, because you got to be brave enough to share your creativity, and entrepreneurship allows you to scale your creativity. So some of the most influential people in the world have had a nice combination of all of those. And I really see that spark in a lot of people, and I love it.
Okay. And what same kind of quality turns you off from people?
I would say ungratefulness. So, I walk around, and maybe it's because I work as a doctor and all this kind of stuff, and I see a lot of despair and desperation, and it makes me so grateful for all the things that we take for granted, right? Just the ability to walk outside your house, the ability to use your legs, the ability to breathe unaided, all these different things that we're so lucky, we're so fortunate, we've all run the lottery ticket. And I just feel a lack of gratitude for all those simple things is a bit of a turn off for me. Yeah.
I agree. Okay, and the last one is an interesting one. If let's say the God exists and you arrive in heaven to pearly gates, what would you like God to tell you?
What would I like God to tell me? I'd like God to ask what took me so long, and I'll respond by saying, well, I ate so many fruits and vegetables and I had a really good lifestyle that I lived for ages.
Okay. All right. That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, this was my last question. I mean, I would talk to you for a lot longer, but maybe we'll have to do it again sometime, part
Definitely.
2.
Yeah.
But Thank you so much for being on my show. I had so much fun talking to you. I feel like I've learned a lot. As I said, I'll need a bit more time to process everything, but
Absolutely.
It was pure pleasure. And I can't wait for the recipes. I'm going to share with you my work of art when I'm done. And I'm so excited for you for your another book and everything that you on the mission for. It's really inspiring and exciting, and we need more people in the world like you.
Thank you, Vir. That means a lot. And I'm waiting for your Chilean sea bass as well. I haven't forgotten about that.
I'm in London. Next time I'm in London, we will
Definitely.
hopefully meet up.
For sure.